Brian is a guy that just brought joy to people. You know, if you were lonely, you were less lonely if you were listening to Brian in the morning on K2 Radio.
Yep.
What larger than life in so many ways. And you and I have been with him. I remember first meeting him, must have been 30 years ago. He was answering the phones at the Jerry Lewis Telethon, and you and I were hosting along with Pete Williams out on CY Avenue. I'm sorry, out on 2nd Street, East 2nd Street, where Sportsman Warehouse now. And he's there with Tracy, and they're answering the phones, and I think he just got off of a big world tour with some rock band. I mean, this guy he's done it all. Yep. Done it all and made people so comfortable. He was a friend to everybody. If you walked into an event, Bob, in Wyoming, you saw he was emceeing, you knew a couple things. You knew you were at the right event. Mm-hmm. You knew it was going to be great fun, and you knew it was going to be a great event.
And thinking about Brian and his life and what he's done for all of us, and I turned to Micah 6:8, and it speaks to acting justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. Mm-hmm. Act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly, in Micah 6:8. And I was just meditating on that and really rolling all the way through since I arrived as a 30-year-old in '99, and my relationship, and all that Brian meant to all of us, and has done so much, and the laughter and the fun and the challenge, and he always just did it with such command and with that that mountainous continence that he has, and just so special, and really Bob, and all the last decade. We started out with a bear hug, and really in the last decade, we ended our conversations with "I love you," and we would look at each other, "I love you," and we would capture, the events with "I love you," and
the story I want to share with everybody is my mom is 72 years old. She has Parkinson's. She can't see, but the very first year we moved out, February '99. My mother came out in May of that year. Mm-hmm. My mom loves tractor pulls, rodeo, and stuff like that. She was able to get tickets. Brian was able to help her get tickets. She got to see her first live rodeo. Yep. My mom is 72 now. She's sick. She doesn't remember his name, but very often when I'm home, she always asks me about that big man she met, because he made her. It was Brian's nature to make everybody feel, and he made my mom. He gave my mother something that day that I can never take back. And I know when I go home, I've got to tell my mother that the big man is not with us anymore. And that's going to break her heart, because she always asks about the big man.
Brian, I remember a couple of years ago when I was first with him on the radio, and keep in mind, I have known of him and heard him, of course, and but had never been on his show until a couple of years ago. And in going on, I said to him, gosh, I feel like I've arrived, And he said, I'll try not to grill you too bad the first time here, the first time. And he was truly, he put me at ease. He was a consummate professional, and just after having been elected now for about 1 year and 8 months, I have had an opportunity to be on a show for numerous times, and back in April, in fact, it was on April 1st, April Fool's Day, I arrived, and we were talking a few minutes before going on the show, and I said, hey, let's do an April Fool's Day prank. And he said, well, what did you have in mind? And keep in mind, it's an election season, and it's a really full, crowded race for U.S. House at the time. And I said, well, let's do a prank announcement, like one of us is going to announce for U.S. House. And he got that twinkle in his eye and a big smile, and then he said, "Nah, we're going to keep it straight this show on April Fool's Day."
I would tell you what a joy. I've known Brian for a long time. Consider him, a dear friend and a patient, and did some business. He came to my wife and I 8 years ago or better, and wanted us to buy their house, and so we got to have a nice business relationship with him like that, and really spend a lot of time with him and Tracy over that. And gosh, what a wonderful dude. But he was such a family man. One day he asked me, "Hey, okay, I know we have the same sense of humor. It's a little raw, but I know, Stuart, you're a man of faith. I want you to talk with me a little bit, and I want to learn some things." And so the guy had God in his heart. He had faith, family. You just look at who he is, who he was. We should all try to be more like Brian Scott.
Bob, thanks for giving me some time this morning on a sad day for the broadcasting community, the Casper community, and frankly, the state of Wyoming. Brian was beloved across the state, and I'm thinking of Tracy and the family. It's just such devastating news to all of us.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to visit with us, Governor. As I had mentioned earlier, he was deeply appreciative of the time that you made for him and for us here at our family of radio stations. But I think that went a little deeper than just a professional relationship. I want you to know that he cared for you very, very much.
Well, you touched me, because I just had such great affection for him, and we were guests at their place and on a couple of occasions, and as you mentioned, he was a fan of the lottery board, or the lottery getting started.
Exactly.
And he hounded me that, and I finally said, "All right, if you want to go forward, we're going to need some great people leadership." And he stepped up, and not only did he step up, he became chairman. And then the irony of the story was that once he became chairman, or once he got on board, he couldn't actually participate in the law. And so he gave me all sorts of grief about that. But as you know, he did those things because he really cared about Wyoming, and he cared about improving Wyoming. And as you recall, last year, the Arts Council nominated him, and I chose him to receive the Governor's Arts Award because of his breadth of things that he touched and improved upon were so great. And he, I've thought about this. I thought it's a rare person that didn't know him, because if you ever did any charity work, you would know him, because he helped people all over the state. Certainly the Boys and Girls Club, he was the guy. And then I think about, motorcycle things that he did for our troops in Lander, and he loved our veterans, he loved our troops, and he had that voice that every man envied, but behind that voice, I think it wasn't just the tone quality, it was the sincerity, because he loved Wyoming to its core. And there was never a time when I would see him just the first thing he'd ask is, "How's the family?" And he asked that, and I so appreciate it, but I think it's a reflection that he knew family was first, and that's how he felt about his family. Family was first.
I was thinking that I'll always remember okay, here we go, boys and girls. When he's starting to raise money, we were all boys and girls, and we were expected to reach in and pull it out. He was truly a man for all seasons, and he not only raised money, he committed himself to the organizations and working with and for them, and most recently, as a member of the lottery board, he got a taste of public service, and as I suspect there were times when when it was causing him a lot of frustration and concern because he was so committed and dedicated to doing a good job.
You know, a part of his charm was his ability that any story worth telling was worth expanding on, and he certainly did that, whether his story was about him or about somebody else. But you know, the real fun part of it is that, you know, each generation produces some people who are just genuinely good people, and he was one of those. I loved his interviews. They were always pretty good, although he seemed to specialize in one or two obnoxious questions, and seemed to delight in just sort of waiting until, and he always knew where the soft spot was, but particularly if it was some controversy that was bubbling up. And I always wondered how he knew all of the stuff he knew. It seemed unfair.
Yes.
You know, you're governor and you think you know a lot. Well, he's always got some out of the kind of out of the dark reaches of his mind, I think.
Mm-hmm. No, he worked on it, no question about it.
You know, once I came to work for you guys, things were definitely different, and he just became such a good friend, and, you know, someone that we all kind of strive to be like, you know, in the radio world. Mm-hmm. Really look up to him. He was a mentor for sure. And some of my fondest memories of Brian were, you know, kind of with competition sort of things. And just a couple of years ago, when we were all up at the Casper Event Center for Jake Owen, we decided to have a little friendly leg wrestling competition. And
there was whiskey involved, by the way.
There was a little bit of whiskey involved. And Trisha Berry was the champion, which was, you know, a little surprising. Brian said he had a new respect for Jim after learning that I could flip him over like a quarter. So
it is, you know, Deb Rodgers mentioned about the wedding.
Yes.
Because I'm one of those, like Frankie and Jocko and Rick, and we're and you, we're BT, we're before Tracy.
Right.
So we've got a few special sorted stories about Brian, but the wedding, I was at the holiday then, and Brian built the bridge. He did the flowers. He told me what I was going to do for food. I mean, it was a remarkable day.
I didn't know he built the bridge. He did the bridge himself then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it had to be engineered. How Tracy got over that thing out is beyond me. and I'm amazed it didn't fall in. And Rick Greiner brought back a few memories of comedy and Drake's, and because I was there for those years, and when business was booming, but I'm pretty sure Brian Scott did one promotion with us that nobody has talked about, and that was Dude Looks Like a Lady.
Say that again?
And we had some tremendous guys dressed up. I remember, what's that Chiquita girl with the fruit,
Chiquita banana.
On her?
Chiquita banana?
Yeah, oh my God, this guy was dressed to the nines, and of course Brian, you know, he just, and the bachelor auctions.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, the amount of things that he did across the state is just. None of us, I think, know the scope. The work he did for wildlife groups and like Turkey and Rocky Mountain Elk, and Gov Dave is absolutely right. He really embellished a lot of stuff, you know, on his trophy hunts. So, and Bob, you mentioned it. How many games did he get thrown out of? You know, and didn't he try out for John Elway's, I think they were called the Crush. It was an indoor football league. Yeah. At a higher level than the Calvary. But I mean, the list just goes on and on and on of the things that he started. He was more than a friend, more than a radio personality, but also a business consultant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the things that he helped lots of businesses with, and myself included.
You know, when I think of Brian, a couple things come to my mind. One thing is he truly was like a son to me. We knew each other for a long, long time because I was in politics for so long.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I would boss him around and, tell him how we were going to do things. And then just like I did my sons. And then just like my sons did with me when they got older, they started bossing me around. And so that's the way it got with Brian. And at one state convention, I was sitting with Brian and one of my sons, and I was clicking this pen, and I annoying everyone, which I didn't know. He had to tell me about 3 times, stop clicking the pen, and then he took the pen away from me and gave me this real nice pen that he had in his pocket. So, he was just so very special to me in my heart. And another thing I think of when I think of Brian is generous. People have said bigger than life, and that is true. And along with that goes generous. He was generous of heart. He was generous with his time, and he was generous with his love. In fact, he was generous with everything he had. And what I think that was one thing that caused everyone to care so much about him. Yeah. And one thing I know, Bob, is I know that he was very happy. I know that he was happy with his life. I know that he was, he knew he was doing the right thing. He was happy with his friends and family. And so I know that he died in a happy place. And that's comforting to me.
First of all, I remember finding out that Brian had some talents that one did not suspect, including the ability to belch on command.
You need that talent, as you well know. Yeah.
And not just a little wimpy burp. It was a true Shakespearean belch. He would rattle the light in the ceiling. And I was like, can you do that reliably? He was like, never fail. And he did. But he was a wonderful actor. He was one of those who would be willing to do pretty much anything for a laugh. We broke a guitar over his head, as I recall.
Yes. We have a photograph of that too, by the way, of that guitar. Yeah,
with wearing the broken guitar around his neck and put on the funny nose and glasses. He would do whatever it took to do that.
Well, I have to tell you, Bob, years ago, when I was young and started at KTRS Radio, I'd been there for about a year, and Brian decided to put in an application. I think that he had his tonsils out, and so he didn't have the voice that he used to have to sing. But he was getting it back day by day, so he started his job in radio. And so we put him on the night shift. He was working from I believe it was 7 to midnight at that time. And Brian decided we had to go hunting one day. He needed an antelope. So he and I got into my F-150 pickup, and I'm driving, and here's this guy who's 6'3" trying to ride in the front seat with a woman who's short, and his knees were on the dash, and I was laughing. And so we could not get up onto the antelope, and finally there's one off in the distance, and I said, oh my God, I said, there's one. He goes, I'm going to shoot it. And I said, I don't think you should. I think it's a little one. He goes, no, I'm going to shoot it. It's a big one. He shot the antelope, and it was a fawn. Oh. And he picked it up, and he just kind of looked at me and goes, I should have listened to you.
Robin, you were a good friend of Brian's, and you worked with him often.
I did. And I saw the news yesterday evening on Facebook, and I listened to Radio Pup, even though since I'm no longer in Casper, because every morning was not complete without hearing that man's voice. I woke up to him for over 20 years, And there was no matter, and I was involved in many different organizations, no matter the cause, no matter the reason or the need, he was always there. And you know, the biggest thing of all that I'm going to miss is that great big bear hug. When I was home in July, I was going to go say hi to him, but things just didn't work out, and I regret that. I miss that bear hug. I miss that beautiful, melodious voice, and absolutely that infectious laugh he had. His common sense that he brought to some of the craziness in this world. My heart just goes out to Tracy and to the whole family. I cannot imagine what they're going through. I can't imagine how difficult for you this morning to get on the air, and for our community, Casper, and our state of Wyoming that he absolutely loved. We have lost a great man.
You know, Brian, as you well know, had a wicked sense of humor. And one of my favorite stories, so put your finger near the button in case this is not appropriate. One of my favorite stories, and Roger was just talking about how that first break you chat about what did you do this weekend and what's going on and, you know, how was your day yesterday. There was one morning when Brian was telling a story about how he had gotten a hold of some really hot chili peppers and was making up some dish with the really hot chili peppers and had not really realized how hot they were and had not put his gloves on, you know, the food preparation gloves kind of thing, when he was chopping up these chili peppers. So he was in the process of creating this wonderful hot dish and had to use the facilities, as they say. And
guess what?
Wash his hands. And I wish I could recount to you the specific words he used to describe the experience.
The pain involved.
Although the details were not there, the way he placed it, everyone in town knew what sort of pain that man had been through with that experience. And I laughed so hard I had to turn the mic off and was crying and snorting and had to go outside because it was so funny. Working with Brian was always a wonderful experience. He was such a supporter of the arts as well, and you know that's where my heart is. And last night when I read Kyle's post on Facebook, that's where I learned that he had passed. I immediately messaged Donovan and said, please tell me this isn't true. And it was.
Yes, it was.
Sorry.
No, we understand. There are many instances, many fun things and sad things that that we all go through in life, and this certainly is one of the saddest. A young man in his prime with a beautiful family, very dedicated to his craft, and not only dedicated to his craft, but indeed at the top of his game, at the very top of his game. I can't recall which one of the callers earlier this morning told us Brian died a happy man.
Doing what he loved, too, was riding that motorcycle.
Yep, no question about it. No question about it. And and I think that's probably the way we sign off, by saying that, you know, he was a happy fellow. He did a lot of hard work, and we're going to miss him terribly.